My name is Amy Fuller, and I work for Northwestern Rural Electric Cooperative in Cambridge Springs. I've been with the co-op for, 18 years now, and I've been doing communications all that time, and I really thank you for having me here today. As she said, we're going to talk about power outages. They do happen, unfortunately, and what we should do in the event of an outage. And this is like a refresher because we've all been through outages and we know what we want to do during an outage or what we should do, we think we do. But so this is just a refresher, and I need them. Earlier this week at the co-op, we had a refresher on defensive driving. You know, I think I'm a pretty defensive driver, but I still learned a few things. So I hope you're able to take some things away from our presentation today. We're also going to talk about scams. Utility scams, because there are quite a few of those going around nowadays, and people come up with new ones every day. So we're going to talk about those things, and when you have a question, just let me know, and I'll be happy to take questions all throughout this presentation, all right? So Northwestern Rural Electric Cooperative, we're an electric company that serves the rural areas of just northwest Pennsylvania. We are a nonprofit company, which is different than like First Energy and Penelec. The people that get electricity from Northwestern we call them the owners. You're the actual owners of Northwestern. So if you are on our lines, you are a member of Northwestern. Okay, we have about 20,000 co-op members right now. Again, and that's just in the rural areas of northwest Pennsylvania. And we have 2,600 miles of electric line. And that's quite a few in our little area. And unfortunately, weather happens. All right, and everybody has a copy of my presentation, I hope, because I wanted you to have something to take home with you. We're going to have tips and what you should do during power outages here. So yes, weather happens. Even though Northwestern has a pretty aggressive right-of-way maintenance program, our number one cause of outages are trees and things like that during storms. And the pictures that I have in this presentation were taken back in November in the Woodcock area. There was a storm. I don't know the exact date in November, but it was a 30-second windstorm with some rain, but the wind knocked down trees and blew roofs off houses and things like that, and caused quite a few outages for Northwestern, and I'm sure First Energy as well. And there are just a couple other things on here. About 1 inch of ice on a single span of electric wire can weigh up to 1,200 pounds. So those are things that happen in our area. We might not have the hurricanes like they do down south, but we do get windstorms. We get ice. Luckily, we don't get as much ice as they do in the Pittsburgh area. But we also have tornadoes. One of our lengthiest outage at Northwestern was in 1985, when we had those tornadoes go through our area, and miles of co-op electric line were destroyed, and we basically had to rebuild several miles of transmission, or not transmission lines, but our distribution lines, and that was our lengthiest outage that I'm aware of. Yeah. All right. So how does the co-op restore power? Well, we start with the biggest area first. We start with even though the co-op doesn't have many transmission lines, we start with the transmission lines, go to the substations, and try to restore power to the most amount of people as possible. And then we work our way all the way down to homes and businesses. And there's a graphic in here that kind of shows you how we restore power at Northwestern, okay? Now, if you do have a medical necessity, where you need power, sooner than most people, we do want to know that at the co-op, and I'm sure First Energy is the same way, and that way we'll come to your house sooner and get power restored a lot quicker, okay? All right. Now, we can only go so far, though, when we're restoring power. And again, back to those storms in November, there's a picture in here where somebody's, what is that, a service entrance cable was torn off of their house. Now, we were in the area and we restored the distribution lines that were directly behind that house, but those service entrance cables are actually the responsibility of that homeowner. They own they have to pay to get that restored or make the arrangements to get their service entrance cable fixed. We do at the co-op occasionally, we're able to temporarily put those up, but it is again up to the homeowner, and it's the same way at First Energy. I do believe they have an insurance program, what they call it, where you can pay a fee, and if should your service entrance cable come off your house, you know, if you are paying towards that, then there shouldn't be any cost to you other than what you've already put into that program or into that fee. Now at the co-op, we do have a grant program for people who do have service entrance problems. We do have a grant program that you can enroll in or apply for, and then that will provide you the funds to get your service entrance restored. So those are, but we don't charge a fee for that. That's just a grant program for you. All right, so during an outage, we take safety very seriously at Northwestern, not only for the employees of Northwestern REC, but the members and the public as well. So that's why I'm happy, again, to be here today to talk to you about safety and to give you this refresher. We also, when there are power lines down, whether it's due to an accident or the weather, some people might think it's okay to drive over those lines. I heard of a story just recently, I think it was in Erie, it was in the area where a car drove over these power lines down and the wire coiled up underneath the car and he was electrocuted. So any line that's down on the ground, whether it's a power line or a phone line, it is possible for that cable to have power going through it. So always assume that the line on the ground is energized and do not drive over it, and report that to your electric company, okay? All right, we don't want any accidents, and we don't want you to touch anything that's hanging on a power line as well, like a tree. We have tree trimmers that are trained to go and get things off of power lines for us and for you, all right? So during an outage, if your power goes out, we want you to first check with your neighbors to see if they have power. Maybe it's just something in your breaker box. Okay, check your breakers as well. And if both of those are off and it's not your breaker box, we want you to call and report your outage. Either call it in, yes?
How do you check the breakers?
Well, you should have a breaker box somewhere in your home.
In the house.
In your house. Mine is in my basement, and if my power goes out, I go down and see if anything tripped. I have an older one, and I have to look to see if the fuse was actually broken, but most of them are easier. You can see that it was tripped, and then just reset it. Okay? Good questions, very good question. So after you do that, we want you to report your outage, call it in, or we also have an app, it's called Smart Hub, and you can report your outage that way, whether it's on your smart device or through a computer. We want you to report your outage because it has happened when just recently we've had a storm come through and they were very scattered outages. And we had line crews out, and as soon as the crew got home, several hours later, they got called back out because somebody, there was a small line of members, I think there were 5 members or so on this strip of line, and none of them had called in to report their outage, and they had been out longer than they needed to be. You know, that it wasn't a new outage, it was the same storm, but nobody called to report that until, you know, they're like, hey, are you going to fix my power? And so our linemen felt bad, we felt bad, and we did get out there right away and fix that. But never assume that your neighbor has called in an outage, okay? Right. And here, there are a couple tips in your packet here that it's telling you to turn off or unplug some appliances if you can. When the power comes back on, we don't want any surges to destroy your televisions or any appliances. If you can get a surge protector, it looks like a smart power strip, but they're also surge protectors. So in the event of your power coming back on, it's not gonna, that surge protector will protect your devices, okay? There are also entire house surge protectors. We have one at the co-op that we offer to our members for a small fee. And again, that goes on your meter, and if there's a surge, your entire house would be protected. So there are definitely pros to those. You know, you do have to pay to get them installed, but there are pros to both of those. For the one, we call it our GenerLink, and it's one that goes on your entire meter, and that is $795, and that includes the installation. And again, that protects everything in your home. Okay. During an outage, if you want to turn off all your lights except for one, that's a good idea as well, because when the power comes back on, that light that you left on will let you know when your power has come back on, okay? And I also have some tips in here on how to keep your food safe. You don't want to open your refrigerator or your freezer during a long outage especially. Somebody the other day asked me where they could get dry ice, you know, in the event of a long outage. And we found out you can get it at a company in Erie, and there's one in Greenville. And if you contact your electric company or contact me, I'll be happy to tell you what exactly those companies are. Yes?
How long does dry ice store?
That I don't know. That's a good question. Longer than regular ice, I know that. And, you know, I could find that out as well. That's a good question. All right. Any other questions before I do move on? During an outage at Northwestern, and probably First Energy as well, we have a fully automated system. All of our meters are smart meters. We installed those several years ago, and what's nice about those, when you call in your outage, we're able to send out a message to all of the meters on that line, or actually the entire system, and it'll ping back and tell us whether those meters have power or not. And what's nice is that pinpoints where the outage is exactly, or what might be causing the outage. So again, call it in, and then we'll be able to see how big the outage is. So that's what's pretty good about a fully automated system. All right, so food safety. Here's another safety tip that is important to the co-op employees as well, is generator safety tips. During an outage, a lengthy outage, you might have a generator that is hardwired into your house or a portable one. Either way, they can be dangerous to our linemen, believe it or not, as well as you. The portable generators, you want to run outside. You know, those are common sense things. You want to run outside where there's proper ventilation. But you are required to have some type of a transfer switch when you're using a generator. What that does, when you're using that device, you transfer you switch that transfer switch, and that will prevent anything from being backfed out onto the lines. And yes?
Is that manual or automatic?
It can be either. There are both automatic transfer switches and there are manual ones. So if you have a generator, it can be, you know, fully automated or manual. But again, it is required. We would like to know if people have generators on our lines, because if a lineman is in your area, they're going to be aware that you have a generator running or might have one running. And I bring that up because one of our sister co-ops in Pennsylvania was out restoring power during or after a storm, and they encountered what they call a whispering generator. What that was, there was a generator running in someone's basement, and the linemen couldn't see it, didn't hear it. They did everything they were supposed to do safety-wise, and they got up in the line and touched it thinking it was dead, but it was being backfed, and he got shocked. And luckily he survived, but again, if there was a transfer switch installed, he would have not been hurt at all, okay? So that's why we require transfer switches. All right. Now there's also some recommendations on what you should have in your pantry during outages or in the event of an outage. But more importantly, we would like you to have a backup plan for a lengthy outage, for example. We want you to, if you live in a facility that has an elevator, during an outage, that elevator might not work. So have a backup plan. What are you going to do? Have a place that you can go, during a lengthy outage, if you can. Keep a flashlight and a cell phone handy. And keep a list of all medications and medical conditions with you in case that is needed during if you need help during an outage. All right? So again, these are all common sense recommendations, and I also have a storm safety kit listed on here that everybody should have, including myself. I don't have all of these items at home. Luckily, we don't get too awful many lengthy outages in our area, but they can happen at any time for any reason. And several years ago, we had a blackout. Somebody was talking about blackouts. I can't remember the exact year. I think it was in June, and we were out for several days, I believe. Now, the co-op was able to restore power to the members a lot faster than the other companies in the area. But during a blackout, you're going to have to throw away spoiled food if you don't have a generator or the dry ice or any of these. You also want to have these safety kit items, all right? Now, brownouts are a little bit different than blackouts. What that is, it's a reduction in voltage. You still have power, but your lights are either dim or some of your lights are on and some are not, and some of your appliances aren't running at all. But there's power there, just not enough. And you had mentioned you would like to know more about brownouts. Brownouts can be very dangerous to your electronics and your appliances, just like a blackout. When the power comes back on during a blackout or after a blackout, the surge can damage your electronics and your appliances. A brownout, the voltage reduction alone can damage your items. So we want you to unplug everything that you can during a brownout and just wait till your power is restored. Give us a call. We want to know what might be causing that. It could be a problem with equipment. It could be one of the phases is down, but the other phase is intact. Yeah?
Is there an automatic system for brownouts?
We at the co-op, with our fully automated system, if there's a problem with voltage or if there's an outage, we are able to automatically transfer the load to some other substation and things like that, if that's what you mean.
No, is there any automatic way to turn off your computer?
Well, again, the power strips that I mentioned earlier, you can, if you have things plugged into that power strip, I'm not aware of an automatic power strip, but if you flip the switch off yourself and to every item, that's manual. I'm not aware of an automatic way to do that. There might very well be, yeah. All right. Yes?
Yeah, I have a question. I live in Highland Towers, and I have a lamp. It's one of those touch lamps to make it come on. And a lot of times, I'm sitting there, my lamp comes on automatically.
Okay.
Is it power surge coming through there, or what?
The question is, he has a lamp that comes on just by touching it. And I've seen that happen with other things like that. You just touch it and it comes on. I don't really believe that would be a power surge. It might be something not functioning right with the item itself, okay? Because again, it's the power surge wouldn't cause it to come on. If it was already on, it would cause it to get brighter, okay? But I don't think it would make it come on automatically.
I wouldn't think it would come back. Nothing simple would come back on unless it's touched.
Right. So something's not functioning right with that. But I've seen that happen myself, definitely.
So actually, nothing to worry about.
Right, yes, not with your power voltage fluctuating. I don't think that's the problem, no. You should be good. All right. A way to test that probably would be to plug it into one of those power strips or surge protectors, you know, and see if that changes anything. I don't think it would, but, I mean, it's just a thought. All right? All right. Sometimes during severe storms, we have some flooding in our area. We've had quite a bit of flooding, I think, during some of our storms this winter, and we hear about basements being flooded. And if you have a basement that becomes flooded, do not go in it to check your electricity or to check on your appliances, because that water might be energized. All right, and so you want to call and get a professional out there to do that, or wait for the water to recede before you get into your basement. All right, these are all things that we've heard of and seen happen in the electric industry, okay? Does anybody have any questions about power outages and what to do in the event of an outage? Because I want to talk to you about utility scams that we're seeing in the industry. Any questions about outages? All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the scams that the electric companies are seeing, and some other ones as well. This is a big one. The first one there is the big one that I've heard about and in the co-op world, and I've heard the dollar amount that people have lost it's just ridiculous. $900 was one member what she lost. But what was happening is somebody's calling people and saying, I'm from your electric company, and you need to pay your electric bill right now, or we're going to turn your power off in an hour, or even less than that. And I can assure you that we would never, Northwestern, and I don't even believe First Energy would call you and demand payment right now, usually with some type of a prepaid credit card, or they call that a green dot scam. They want you to pay with gift cards and things like that. Well, I can assure you we would never call and demand you to make payment over the phone, or you're going to be shut off. The co-op does not do that. We do call and remind members, you know, hey, you have a bill coming up, but that's it. That's the extent of it. We are not going to demand payment over the phone. We want you to either come in to make a payment and things like that. And we certainly are not going to threaten to shut you off like that. All right? Yeah?
Does PUC require 2 or 3 written notices?
That's a good question. I do believe they require some advance notice, and I know the co-op itself, we do send out 2 delinquency notices before anything has happened, and during the winter, we definitely don't shut power off to any of our members, and that's a PUC requirement. Northwestern REC, as a cooperative, we are not required to follow the PUC guidelines, but we do. We do, and everything that we can do. We send out the delinquency notices. We don't shut off power during winter months, things like that. We offer assistance. All right, so those are very good things to point out, okay? So if you ever get that phone call from somebody saying, I'm going to shut your power off if you don't pay me right now, we want you to report that to both your electric company and the police. We want you to report those, because those are illegal, and they're trying to steal from everybody, okay? And like I said, yes?
And probably, if you have call waiting and you have that number, you could probably turn it into a better business for you.
Very good. He mentioned that if you have caller ID on your phone, which most of us do, you can write that number down and report that along with, you know, the information that you gather about who's calling you and why they're calling you. But it's also important to know that those caller IDs can be manipulated. I don't know how exactly, if it's an app or what, but they can make it look like a legitimate phone number or a legitimate company. So yeah, even though we want you to write that information down, it's probably not going to be a real place. Okay.
You don't answer.
Yes.
That happened to me. I went with a different electric company. I don't have REA, but I have Penland. And it was like 6 cents or 5 cents, you know, which was okay. And then I went to cancel it. It said you could cancel at any time. And then in the meantime, because when you got it first, it was like December, you really didn't get a bill till February.
Right.
And then it was like way up there. And I canceled, and it went up to like 30 cents.
Oh my goodness.
Anyways, but my son down south just happened to know where to go online and go through a lawyer and all this stuff, which I wouldn't have been able to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I got it back. I got my $900 back.
Oh, very good. Right, right.
I
That,
would have been able to do it on myself. I wouldn't have known. You know.
right, and that's another thing we're seeing. It's not necessarily a scam, but what it is, especially for Penelec customers, you can shop around for the least expensive generation or different generation. Some people want to shop for wind generation, which is more expensive. You know, they want something that might be cleaner than coal. So you can shop around for the cheapest or different generation, but if you want to do that, it's very important to do your research, because some of those companies might offer this rate at the beginning, and then once that initial period is over, they might bump up your rate to something, ridiculous. And that has happened, or the rates fluctuate, or if you want to cancel, there's a cancellation fee, and you can't get out of it very easily. And luckily, this lady here was able to get some of her money back for making that change, that she wasn't aware of the changes in the rates and things like that. So, yeah, be very diligent in your research, okay? And you can get online and go to the PUC. They have legitimate generation suppliers out there, and information about all their different programs. So those are good things to keep in mind. Now, Northwestern REC, all the co-ops in Pennsylvania have been, what's the word I'm looking for? We're not part of the competition that you see in Pennsylvania, because the co-ops own about 70% of our generation, so our rates are low and stable, and so there's no electric generation supplier out there who can even compete with our rates. So we're excluded from the retail choice in Pennsylvania, okay? And our rates have been stable and low for years now. Yes?
I have gotten a call requesting and selling different generational charges. Once they hear you're in the co-op, they don't have anything to do with you.
Right. A lot of the co-op members, because of this retail choice, they're getting phone calls saying, if I can save you so much money on your electric bill if you switch to this electric generation. And even though we're excluded from that, our members are getting called because these companies are buying area codes and zip codes of phone numbers. They don't know who your electric company is, but they're just buying these big databases and just calling everybody. And then as soon as you tell them you're a co-op member, they hang up on you. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. But again, if you do get that phone call as a Penelec customer, we want you to do your research. Don't just say, okay, yeah, save me the money. Go ahead and do your research. But it is a good thing to switch. If you can save money, it's a legitimate thing. Just make sure it's a good program. Okay?
I had one last night.
Did you?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. They wanted me to switch electric from one unit to the other unit.
Right.
I said, well, no, I'm not going to do it. Who pays your electric bill?
Yeah, exactly. They're just calling everybody, whether you can change it or not. They're just going to call.
I got one in the mail. I got 1 free month of electric.
Yeah, somebody else mentioned that, I think. Somebody else in here. Yeah. You got one as well?
Somewhere.
I get calls all the time.
Yeah.
Company about doing this or lowering that, and I paid $300 at the end of the year. That's what my bill was, and then the first year, I didn't have to pay anything. Now I'm back up to $167.
Oh, my.
And I don't know what's going on. I always tell them, my daughter handles all the bills and everything, so I say you have to talk to her, because I don't know anything about it. But they still keep on calling. I guess I've gotten at least 3, 4 calls a day.
Oh, wow. Now, the only way I can suggest to try to stop that is to report that or get on the do not call list. There are do not call lists, but it might take a while for that to go into effect, and that's really the only thing I can recommend that you do. But again,
They keep telling me that they want to lower my.
yes, right.
But it didn't seem to go down any, even if it looked right down the way it is.
Right.
It's up and down.
Yeah, they fluctuate quite a bit, even if you change it. Yeah.
I've heard people, they get on that, people call us and they still call.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that works with calls like that. Yeah, there are exceptions, and that might be one of the exceptions, but they just keep calling, even members. Yeah, they keep calling.
Oh, yeah.
And numbers change too. People's numbers change, and I don't know. But I do recommend trying to do that. Now, one of the next scams we had happen here in Meadville, in the Autumn Hills area, and Autumn Hills, that's served by Northwestern, and I'm very happy that they reported this. But what happened was somebody went up to those houses claiming to be from their electric company, Northwestern, and said, I need to come into your house, or there's two of them, we need to come into your house to check your receptacles, your power, your outlets there. And the people were hesitant because, okay, we handle those big power lines, not that lines in the house. So luckily they didn't let them in the house, and they called the police and they called the co-op and let us know. I don't think they ever found those guys, but they moved moved out of the area. But again, Northwestern electric companies don't need to come into your house to look at your outlets or your appliances at all. We just serve the lines outside. Now, on occasion during an outage, if a member asks one of our linemen to come in and check a breaker box, because they're not familiar with it, that happens. But again, we don't have to come into your house. We would not ask you or demand to come in your house. Don't fall for that, because what they want to do is the one person is going to distract you and the other person is going to rob you. Okay, right. So again, that was happening here in Meadville, but luckily they didn't get very far. Okay, so these are scams that just are unbelievable, but are happening. Yeah. Now, some other ones that don't necessarily pertain to the electric industry, but are very important because they're happening now, especially this time of year. There are some people calling saying they're from the IRS, and they're saying you owe back taxes, and you have to pay them right now, sometimes with a gift card or through your own banking. Well, I can assure you the IRS is never going to call you like that and make a demand that you pay your back taxes. If you do ever owe back taxes, they're going to mail something to you, okay? So anytime you're getting a phone call demanding money, be leery and gather as much information as you can. Check with the company that they're saying they're from before you make any payment. Don't ever give out your financial information over the phone, all right? Now, some other ones, the last two scams that I have here deal with email and computers. And the one actually happened to me. And I see these email scams all the time. That if you get an email from somebody who you think you know, or it looks very familiar to you, the name, if you see any typos or things like that in the subject line or in the body of the email itself, if there are really bad misspellings, that's a good sign that there's a virus attached to that email, or it's a scam, and they want your financial information. So just delete those. That's the quickest thing to do, is to delete those emails, all right? Now, the last one happened to me not too long ago. I got a phone call on my work computer, my work phone, and the person said, I represent Windows. Microsoft Windows, and we got a notice from your server that your computer is riddled with viruses and spyware and things like that, and that he called to help me go through that. It was going to cost me a little bit of money, and I'm like, well, first of all, I'm working on a Mac, an Apple computer, so I don't even have Windows, and second of all, we have a fantastic IT, group at the co-op, so I don't believe you. He hung up right away.
I wonder why.
Yeah. And even our IT department kind of play with these people. When they get those phone calls, they keep them on the line long enough to see if they can get more information about where they're calling from or who they're calling for. But
Probably Nigeria.
yeah, calling from a different country for sure.
Where they're calling from.
Yeah, because it's usually from a different country, absolutely. And I can tell you, if you get any phone calls from Northwestern REC, the phone call is coming from Cambridge Springs, and I can give you the names of all the member services people there. That's who would be calling you from Northwestern. Okay, so those are different scams, and I know somebody mentioned earlier today that they got a postcard in the mail saying they could get 1 free month of electricity. I'm not saying that's a scam, but that might be something to be a little bit leery about. There might be some, read the fine print. I'm not sure what that's all about, but I myself going to be watching for that in the mail as well. You got one yesterday? Yeah. So.
When something sounds too good to be true, it usually.
Yes, and good point she just said. When something sounds too good to be true, it most likely is too good to be true. So it usually is. Yeah. Okay. Do you guys have any other questions or comments? We can talk about anything relating to power. He asked if I'm from Cambridge. I actually live here in Meadville. The co-op itself is in Cambridge Springs. We've been around for 82 years. We started off. The CEO is Mrs. Mary Grill.
I know her.
You know Mary? Yes.
I used to take a lady in to watch her kids.
Oh,
every day.
yeah. Her kids are all grown now.
Probably married.
Yeah.
Probably married.
Yeah. What's nice about the co-op is we are local. We're locally owned. We're locally operated. So we're part of this community, just like you are. I was born and raised here in Meadville. My father worked at the Tribune for years and years. I don't know if you know John Wellington. That's my dad. He was the editor of the Tribune for a long time. Obviously, you know my dad. My mom worked for Ainsworth when it was Dad's a long time ago. So I long roots here. All of us do. Yes.
Where is your power generated?
Very good question. Like I mentioned earlier, we own about 70% of our generation. Most of that comes from the Susquehanna Steam Electric Plant, which is nuclear. And then all of the co-ops own Raystown Dam, hydro dam, and so we get a portion of our power from there.
What part of the state is that?
That's kind of in the south central part of Pennsylvania, yeah. So that's where we get all of our power, is most of our power. The remaining 30% is purchased on the open market, and that some of it comes from Niagara Falls, some of it comes from there, but there is some other oil or coal-fired, plants and generation that way, some fossil fuel in there. So, good questions. Anything else?
Yeah, I just want to say, I got a call last week from the fire department, the police department. I couldn't catch the numbers, but they're asking for donations. And I supposed to send the money to Washington, D.C.
Ah,
I thought to myself, okay, Washington, D.C., the police department, the fire department here in Meadville, Washington, D.C.
right.
Yeah, I called them up, sorry, we do not take donations over here.
Oh, wow.
Even as a matter of fact, we don't take donations at all.
Wow, it's good. This gentleman got a phone call asking for a donation from the fire department or the police department, and ended up calling the payment, they said, had to go through Washington, and he called and they said, no, that's not the case. We don't take donations that way over the phone. And so you always be leery when anybody's asking for money over the phone. Unfortunately, that's what the world's come to. You got to beware. So
Everybody wants money.
yeah, they want to, and they don't want to get it the hard old-fashioned way. They don't want to earn it. They want to steal it.
I said, where's Dan's fund?
Yeah.
I called the number and it updates. There's no such number.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm glad you checked into that. That's good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm just curious, how many of you are co-op members? Just a couple of you?
I'm one of the ones that's supposed to call in all the time, or we don't have power. 1-800-352-0014. Can dial it at daylight, dark, at any time.
Yep, that's our number.
I know. I'm doing it for 30-some
Yeah.
years.
Well, I do want to
Good
mention.
at getting it back on.
Oh, thank you for saying that. We do try, and we do maintain our right-of-ways pretty aggressively. There's some areas where we have some old original line. I'm not saying that's the case for you, but we're trying to replace that old conductor. We do lots of lines, replacing it. We replace it every year, so yes.
This has been years ago, but my dad used to get a rebate every year.
Yeah, he said that years ago his dad would get a rebate. It's really what we call that are capital credits. And all of our members, every year we retire capital credits because we're nonprofit. At the end of the year, after all of our expenses are paid, again, being nonprofit, all of the proceeds go back to our members in the form of capital credits. Okay, so every year, if you've been a co-op member, you should get a capital credit check. That's a nice
They're not
thing.
as large as they used to be, but I think a lot is capital improvement.
Well, that's part of it, but it also is based on how much electricity you used in that year that we retire. Like last year, or this past time, we retired 2015, and I'm not sure what, 1980 something. So it depends on how much electricity you used during those years is how we base it. Yes.
That you have a big picnic or?
We do. We have our annual meeting, again, as a cooperative, that we're required to have an annual meeting, which is mostly a fun time, a picnic. But we do have a business meeting where we elect new board members or re-elect board members, because we have 10 different districts, and each district has a director, and they help run the organization. They help make decisions on policies and on our rates and things like that. So, and this year our annual meeting is on August 4th, which is a Saturday. It's always a Saturday, and it's always at the Crawford County Fairgrounds.
Oh, okay.
Because we have a good time. By invite only, that's right. That's right. So if you want to come, you have to, and you're not a member of the co-op, you have to come with this lady up here. I do want to mention, especially to the members of Northwestern, our statewide organization, which is Pennsylvania Rural Electric Association, and our Generation and Transmission Cooperative, which is Allegheny Electric Cooperative, they're sending out 4 LED light bulbs to each member on our lines. So you should be getting one in May. You should be getting a package. And we want you to use those light bulbs because LED light bulbs are the most efficient ones out there. And we want you to replace your incandescents or your CFL light bulbs even, because those CFL light bulbs, they don't last as long as they're supposed to, and they also have a little bit of mercury in them that you have to be careful when you dispose of them. You have to recycle them, and we recycle CFL light bulbs at the co-op. So whether or not you're a co-op member, you can bring them to Northwestern.
Do they have any that are brighter? When I sell one,
The LEDs or the CFLs?
the LEDs.
The LEDs, yes, they come in different lumens, so that's what you want to look for. But nowadays, when you're buying a light bulb, they also do the equivalent of. If you're looking for a 100-watt light bulb, the LEDs will say, this I don't know, 7-watt LED light is the equivalent of 100-watt. And I'm just saying that. I'm not sure if that's what the equivalence is, but you want to look for lumens. The higher the lumens, the brighter the light.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem to be enough if you do
Yeah.
this work.
Yeah, I wish I have a little display. I should have brought that with me, and you could see the different lumens.
If you get one of those LEDs, I don't know what I have, I think I have some. There was a question with my electrician because some of my lights require a 60-watt only bulb. Now, can you up that with the LEDs? He said no.
That's a good question. I've never had that question before, but I know there are lights out there like that you have to put in a 60-watt light bulb. And no, the LEDs would not work because they use a lot less, so that it doesn't sound like it would work.
Cheated by going
Did you?
higher with the LED.
Ah.
And he said, no, don't do that.
Yeah, I don't think the lights are being manufactured that way anymore. I don't know how old that light is, but that's a good question. I'm going to get the answer to that, and I will send the answer into the people here and let you know, okay? Yes?
Okay, so what if you have, I tried to put one of those light bulbs, and I have a big one, and I tried to put on my outside porch, and I could never get it to work. I actually had to put like a regular wattage
Really?
school bulb, and it works just fine, but
Right.
or it's the halogen one. It's that like, when you move into a new place and they send you out that little packet.
Yes.
It's like, oh my God, it's one of those, but it's like a bigger one, I don't know what the lumens are, but
Okay.
I never, all throughout the winter, it would never work.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, and I'm guessing that it was a CFL light that you tried to put on the outside. Those CFL lights, they usually have they're squiggly. They don't like working in cold weather at all. It takes them a long time to come up to their full brightness, or they won't work at all. And it's that type of light bulb. If you used an LED light or something else, like I would recommend the LED light. Yeah, because they work in any kind of weather, and their lumens don't fluctuate like a CFL light bulb, and they use even less electricity than a CFL light. So good question. Yes?
CFL, like, is sort of huge. She said they don't want to be cold weather.
Oh, you are? I am not aware of that. I'm not sure. I would have to look into that and see if there, and I will do that as well. I'm going to send an email back and answer some of these questions. I'm not sure. I would check with a health facility, actually. I don't think I could send you to Home Depot and have them answer that question, but they might. I don't know. But I'm going to look into that, and I will send an email back. I have never had these questions, and I think they're really good questions to have, and I should get the answers. Absolutely. Any other questions? Somebody said something about CFL over here, and I didn't hear what you said. No?
She wondered what the difference was. She couldn't
Oh.
hear exactly what you said.
I see, yes.
It's not good, but nothing but them ones that got a survey like that, because if you bust them,
Right.
there's probably, what's inside of them?
The question is about the CFL light bulbs. They're kind of tricky to handle if one is broken because they have mercury in them. Just a little, very, very minute amount of mercury, but still mercury is dangerous for the environment and for people. And they recommend that you clean it up very carefully. They want you to sweep it into and put it in a plastic bag and then throw it away. Because we can't recycle broken CFLs.
So that light bulb in a socket, you better do it by the base.
Yes. Yeah, I've had some of them break off. If you try to twist them, the swirly part of it, that'll break off. So you want to be careful and just use the base of it. Yeah, you get it on your hand. Wash your hands if that happens. Right, yeah. So that's why you're seeing more and more LED lights come in, into play here, because there's no mercury in LED lights, and they don't get hot in lights that I don't know. They're recessed into your ceiling or something. If they can't breathe, if CFLs can't get that heat out, they will actually get too hot and maybe burn something or melt part of that lighting receptacle. So, all right, are there any other comments or questions? What we passed out, there's a tool there that shows you how much electricity different appliances use and electronics use, and it's quite a handy tool, I think. Yeah. So if anybody didn't get one, I have more up here as well. Okay? All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. Thank you.